putting my suit on. So I'm very sorry for the slight delay, but it's a pleasure.
I can see that the adrenaline levels are really high right now.
Yeah, there's a little.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
I'm looking at my very best.
So yeah, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us in this virtual happy hour session organized by Dental Monitoring. The format of the session today is slightly different than the ones that we do usually. Why? Because when I asked Dr. Deeming the last time to host the session, he said, look, Ryan, I'm telling you from now, I don't have time to do a boring PowerPoint presentation. Everyone is sick of it, and everyone is having a Zoom fatigue. I want to interact with people, and I want to make this more about the audience than myself and how I do things in my office. So from there, I understood, Guy, that you were too busy to put a presentation together after getting back to the office of the second wave, which is normal. So, but seriously, this is to say that today's session is dedicated to answer all of your questions and nothing else. We've already received some questions through the polls, so thank you for that. We will dedicate the first part of the session to answer these. And if you haven't sent any question through, don't worry, right? We will still have plenty of time to answer some more live, and we will dedicate almost 30 minutes of the session for that. So don't hesitate to do so by either typing the question, or if you prefer, you can ask us to, we can transfer you, can make you a host, and you can unmute yourself, you can be on camera, and you can have a live discussion with Guy. So for now, just sit back, relax, enjoy a nice drink, and shoot all the questions that you have on your mind. Today, we're so lucky to have Dr. Deeming on our side. Guy is a specialist orthodontist and a partner at Queensway Orthodontics, working across 2 multidisciplinary practices in the northeast of England. He's an international speaker for many dental industries across the globe. He's a forward thinker and a real innovator. In his free time, he enjoys, as you say now, his morning runs. And he also likes to listen to God knows how many podcasts. And hence he decided to create his own called the Dental Podcast. I'm a big fan myself, so I really invite you to go and listen to it after the session. Guy, welcome again. This is starting to feel like the Joe Rogan experience, episode number 1000.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. And as I say, I think my feelings about PowerPoint we've had a year, almost a year to the day in the UK of being in lockdown. And I think we were so drowned and deluged by PowerPoint and keynotes in those early months. And that, I think for me, the things I enjoyed most of all was listening to people and watching people talk around a subject and have a much more relaxed conversation around a subject of interest. And I think one of the challenges that we all have now is that we're just a bit exhausted, fatigued by the same old Netflix box sets and the same old sort of PowerPoints and so on and so forth. And I think this is really an opportunity for Ryan and I to talk through my experiences with SmileMate, but importantly, actually to be challenged a little bit and to get a little bit of pushback on where your feelings may lie and what your experiences or contrasting experiences might be. And perhaps we can try and find some ways or some ideas as to how we can overcome some of those challenges and maybe help you realize some of the benefits that we've seen in our practice, because we've had to really, since the doors slammed shut 51 weeks ago in the UK, we had to completely reinvent how we did things. And one of my favorite people to listen to is a guy called Scott Galloway, who is a professor of marketing at Howard Stern in New York. And he has a number of podcasts, actually. He's also a very well-written marketing author. And he basically describes the idea that COVID has accelerated change. And that very much feels like our experience. And SmileMate and the whole kind of dental monitoring ecosystem has been a very big part of that for us. And I remain excited about it. And I was reflecting the other day with some colleagues that actually I don't miss anything about my work life from pre-lockdown. There's many things I miss about my social and domestic life, but in terms of the way we used to do things, there is nothing that I look back and think, gosh, I can't wait to go back and do that way again. And that's absolutely extraordinary. So for all the sadness and the difficulties and the misery and the challenges and the loss we've experienced either remotely or sometimes sadly very close to our lives, I think there is something to be seized upon and celebrated that out of what we've experienced. So anyway, there we are. So thank you for having me again. And yeah, Ryan, where do we start?
Guy, it's an absolute pleasure to have you over and over again. Mark
I'm
is saying through the chat that he's a big fan of Scott Galloway himself.
Hmm.
And he said, great appearance on Bill Maher this week. I don't know if you
Hmm.
catch this one.
I haven't, but I will look that one up. I will look that one up. I was listening to the he does a podcast called Pivot, which I really enjoy, which is he's a fast talking, fairly abrasive New Yorker, but all the better for it, I think.
This guy is special. I'm a big fan myself because of you.
Go.
And last time I listened to one of his podcasts, he said something really interesting. He said, I think you have to invest your time and energy on the technology platforms that are going to dominate over the next decade.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to the virtual wave, and that means you can zoom in anywhere at the speed of light and embed time and space, and think how you can take existing service and virtualize it to make 100,000 times better, faster, and cheaper.
Mm.
And I think that fits really well in the context of what we're talking about today: the virtual reality, the virtual consultations, remote care, etc.
Well, there's a couple of truths in a lot of all this stuff. Not so much what Scott talks about, but the idea that people that do the best are the people that tend to invent the shovels. And the second thing is the things that tend to do best are the things that you can scale. And to a greater or lesser extent, the dental monitoring ecosystem in SmileMate is scalable, and we'll talk about that a little later. And actually, it does represent, without wishing to sound trite, it's not the diggers, it's the shovel. It creates a platform which you can use in many different ways to achieve many different things, and it's not a one-trick pony. And I think that's what makes it exciting, and that's what makes it fit very well for our times. But it's also what makes it challenging in terms of how we used to do things, because it is a big step change. And some of us, well, all of us find that difficult to varying degrees, particularly if you can't see the objective, if you can't see where you're going with it.
Completely. So Guy, you told me you wanted to make this about the audience and not about you. So what a better way to kickstart the discussion by taking some questions from, the audience that we already received.
Great, let's go for it.
And I've been personally tracking these questions, or sometimes we call them objections, for more than a year now. And I found that, all of these questions are 5 things in common in 5 different areas: the efficiency of the tool that we're talking about, the patient experience, the marketability, the staff roles, and the ROI. So for the first part of the session, we'll be covering these main aspects. So let me start by asking you this question. Today, there are so many platforms on the market that would allow you to do virtual consultations, and lots of them are free, and you don't even need to do any specific training to use them. This whole concept of teledentistry isn't something new by any meaning. This term exists from 30 years ago, but it was never considered to be something useful until the pandemic hit, and you had no other choice. However, to our surprise, and to everyone's surprise in the medical field, it turned out that patients, they love it. And early surveys, they show that they even prefer it to the physical ones. And they say they work great in any context, even out of this, the context of the sanitary crisis. And you had the chance to try a few of them throughout this year, and you learned through trial and error what a good sustainable platform is like. So can you let me know, can you tell me and tell the audience why you decided to settle on SmileMate, and why did that make any difference to you?
So I suppose the heart of that is a sort of a misconception about what SmileMate actually is. Because there are, as you said, lots and lots of platforms of varying different qualities, whether it's FaceTime or Zoom, or we've used one called DoxyMe a lot. There's lots of virtual consultation, video consultation platforms out there. And SmileMate includes a video consultation functionality. Make no doubt about it. But actually, you don't have to use that bit. And actually, we don't use that bit for the most part. The magic of SmileMate is the automation and the integration of the lead acquisition at the front end. So what it is, in effect, it allows you to drive your lead traffic towards one particular digital image acquisition platform, for want of a better term. So in other words, it drives them to a place where they can send their photos in. And then it very, very efficiently automates delivery of information to that patient to deliver value, and then to drive them to the next call to action. So what it does, and the magic of it for me, is it bridges that gap between a patient sitting in their seat, well, rather not a patient actually, because they're a consumer. Until you've got your fingers in their mouth, they are a consumer. a consumer, somebody with a thought, a notion that they might be interested. It takes them from the point of going onto the internet and saying, I'm interested in something, to the point of booking a virtual consultation or a consultation of some sort. It bridges that gap very efficiently, because what it does is it gives them a very clear series of very simple, very achievable calls to action, and then it automates the delivery of value back to them. Because what they have very quickly, depending on how you choose to set things up, is information that is personal and is bespoke to them in the form of the SmileMate report, which then creates some credibility and some goodwill upon which you can then invite them to take the next step to either come in to see you or to come onto a virtual consultation. So that for me is the magic of SmileMate. It is the efficiency and the automation and the added value in those very, very early stages of lead acquisition, which will then improve the probability and the quality of the subsequent interactions, whether that is a video consultation or a face-to-face. So for me, there's a bit of a misconception that SmileMate is just yet another alternative to a video consultation platform, because it's really not. Because the video consultation piece is not that exciting within SmileMate. The magic is the bringing together of lead acquisition, CRM, so in other words, automated email responders, the artificial intelligence-driven dental report, which patients think is magic because we all love reading about ourselves, and then call to action. That's the magic of it. And that's what makes it different. And that's why we settled on it, because it meant it was simple and it replaced lots of other bits that we were having to cobble together within our practice.
Very well said. So you said something interesting. You said, what makes it different than any other, virtual consultation tool out there is that it allows you to automate the process. And the biggest advantage would be, the AI-driven reports. This is where we get one big concern: the reliability of this technology. So some people ask themselves or ask us, is the AI accurate enough to detect different clinical parameters? Am I communicating the right information to the patients? Are the pictures quality good enough to be able to make a good preliminary diagnosis, and on and on? And what do you think they are missing when they ask this?
The point is that is not a clinical examination. That's not a definitive, you've got X, Y, and Z. That is a preliminary report which gives patients food for thought. And I mean, the reservations about AI, if you look at some of the data that's now coming out, looking at, for example, breast cancer screening, it is time and time again being shown that the AI technologies are more accurate than the human eye at detecting minor changes in radiographs or scans. So the quality of the AI is there. It's very much about how do you set it up and how do you frame it, and then how do you set it up and how do you define your thresholds in terms of what you want to say and communicate. Because you're not using that report to say, you have definitely got this and you definitely need that. You're using it to say, this is some information that you may find interesting and some general thoughts about your overall dental condition to allow you to take the next steps. It's a bit like going into a garage and saying, well, I kind of am interested in having a car. And the first step is going into the garage to look at some cars. And then you're gradually refining the process till you get down to, this is the car, this is the model, this is the color, these are the extras. And it's taking people by the hand, step by step, rather than just saying, choose, and throwing everything at them in an environment where they feel intimidated and overwhelmed. It's making the whole process much more empathetic to how consumers want to make purchasing decisions, particularly around their own health and well-being. And don't forget, it's not about us. It's not about me or Ryan as a dentist or any of you guys as dentists or orthodontists. It's about what patients or consumers want to read about themselves. So if we think, well, those photos are a bit rubbish or this, that, and the other, it doesn't matter. It's not about us. It's about those people who are out there looking, saying, that's interesting. That's an interesting reflection on what I want to read about myself. In the same way that you can go onto a fashion website and you could submit a series of photographs about yourselves, or you can go onto a glasses and optometry website. You can take a facial photo. No, you can try on all the different frames. It's not perfect, but it's really fascinating and interesting, and it's better than nothing. It's the next step, and it's getting better and better and better and better. And most importantly, it's now becoming commonplace. And for a profession, dentistry and orthodontics, and for practices or brands like yours that want to set themselves apart from the old-fashioned way of doing things, that want to sit alongside those consumer-orientated organizations that are actually doing things differently. This is a really effective way of doing that by offering similar technology within dentistry that patients and consumers are starting to see in other aspects of their lives.
Beautifully said, guys. So if I want to take two takeaway messages from what you just said right now, the first one is that when we talk about AI, it's about time that we start putting some trust in it. And I, like yourself, I'm a big fan of this. And I follow the work of someone called Dr. Eric Topol, who is today the leader of AI in the field of healthcare. And they always ask him, all these doctors, especially the radiologists, they say, am I going to lose my job because of computers, because of AI? And he tells them always one thing, guys, the only way not to be displaced by these computers is to allow yourself to be displaced by these computers. And the end goal is here, is the end message is, it's not AI versus you, it's AI plus you versus you alone. And this is where you get all the benefits.
And you know, to use, it's a sort of slightly tacky kind of analogy, but it's a little bit like compressing coal to create a diamond. You know, there's a lot of pressure around us, and there is no doubt that if you want to continue to be the orthodontist or to be the practice that, you know, gets a letter from somebody and says, please see and treat. And then 6 months later, you offer them an appointment, and then they come in and they have a chat, and then they come back and they have a photograph taken. And that's a hobby. That's not going to work anymore. The magic now is finding the space between the technologies where you can add value as a clinician. So we shouldn't be intimidated by this. We should be looking for the opportunities to add and keep the humanity in it. Because people don't want to be treated by machines. They want to be treated better by people using machines to make that whole process more efficient and more potentially cost effective for them as well.
Yeah. And I'm going to quote one of our great KOLs as well, Dr. Crowdy. He told me one time, you know, as we age, we lose our dexterity, we lose a bit of our sight, but our ability to think, to diagnose, and to plan the treatment not only stays the same, but gets better. And so this is where the AI completes him. It's taking care of these things, you know, like detecting these little situations, like communicating with the patients remotely, and on and on.
I guess the challenge is that what this does is it starts to draw, this whole thing starts to, and a bit like with dental monitoring, actually, it starts to draw focus on what the job of the contemporary orthodontist actually is, because it looks less and less like it's actually tinkering with brackets and pliers and wires. And I think it can appear on the surface to be a threat. Well, what am I supposed to do now? But what you're supposed to do is to go back to that core idea of engaging people, because that is an irreplaceable skill. The ability to talk to people, to understand their wants and their challenges, and to create a treatment solution that is going to work for them without being distracted by all the stuff that somebody else or something else can do for you. And that's really, really exciting, because what that does is means you're not distracted by the stuff that actually is ultimately not that exciting. And it means that you're scalable, you can do more, or you can do it better, because it gives you time. And that's by far the most valuable resource that we have and our consumers and patients of the future have. You know, we are time starved, and adding quality into that narrow opportunity is the secret.
Exactly. We have two interesting comments from the audience. The first one from Dr. Rhonda Cohen. Hello, Dr. Rhonda. So she said, you know, we call it assessment of the data that we have received. It's not a consultation per se. And I've seen some pretty shitty human assessments.
Yeah, exactly.
Really
and patients are not stupid. People are not stupid. And I think it's naive of us to suggest that they think that that is a substitute for somebody putting their fingers in in their mouths. But it is the start. And that's all it is. And just as Francis says, I can see the other comment there, that's exactly right. It lowers the bar. It makes it easier for them to take the next step, because it gives them value. It gives them something to prompt the next series of thoughts, rather than just facing this huge kind of wall that they've got to leap over at a time that's inconvenient and leaving work or leaving school, all those kinds of things.
Exactly. So that takes me to actually your second takeaway message from what you just told me. SmileMate is not meant to replace an initial consultation. It's not here to give all the clinical answers to the patient, but it's a great marketing tool. It's a great marketing tool because it helps you move the whole sales process further upstream, which allows you to tap into a wider audience and increase the perceived value at the early stages of the funnel. So in simple terms, more leads online. Correct, Guy?
This is what, well, there's lots of different responses to that, because SmileMate per se is not the marketing. SmileMate is the platform upon which a really effective marketing funnel can sit. And SmileMate is the destination for all of our marketing efforts in terms of how we acquire and manage our leads. So I don't think you can go and put on your website, we have SmileMate, full stop, and expect things to happen, because that's not going to mean anything to patients. But what it is, it's the gray box that sits in the back there that allows you to talk about all the benefits of SmileMate to your patients. Because don't forget, I mean, I'm sure you all know this, but the idea of having marketing it has to be framed in terms of patient benefit. So we don't want to talk about the solution. We want to talk about what the benefits are going to be to the patients. And that's going to be very much about, we can give you information about your oral health to allow you to make some decisions about your next steps or whatever it might be. And part of that is about giving patients that feedback. I mean, I've just been for a run, as you know, and when I finished, I'll look at the statistics and see how far I went. We love reading about ourselves. And if you say free dental health report, or oral health report, or whatever it might be, that's a really great catch for patients to then engage with and start to talk about. So the idea there is, in a traditional model, you'd get somebody that would come to your website and they may or may not fill in the little form, say, I'm interested in having my teeth straightened, or you may or may not get a referral from a dentist. And you would then have to contact them. And we all know that you've got to contact those patients really quickly. Otherwise they go somewhere else, or they get bored, or the boiler breaks, or the car breaks down. And you would then invite them into the clinic, and some of them would never respond, and some of them would come in, and when they came into the clinic, they may or may not choose to go ahead with treatment. And during that initial consultation, they'd be in a busy, bustly clinic, and it would sometimes be running late, and it may be chaotic, and it may not be what you want it to be or what they want it to be. But now we've got a way of actually, within a matter of minutes of a patient saying, I'm interested, they can take some photographs, they can send you the photographs, you can then send back a series of automated but personal but branded emails or whatever you want to do, with a report which is going to say, this is about us, this is about you, this is how we can help, these are the benefits, this is what you need to do next. So we've lowered the bar for them to take the next stage, just as Francis says. And what that's meant is, effectively our conversion rates have moved a notch further upstream. So if traditionally 50% of leads that came to our website would come in for a consultation and 50% of those would go into treatment, for the sake of argument, what we now find is that 50% of those leads go into treatment, because we've completely cut out that middle phase of the conversion rate. So the figures are, I've rounded the figures up for the sake of the example. It's not quite that good, but it's not far off, that we've completely taken a chunk out of our conversion rate attrition because we've skipped a stage. And that's the magic of giving that value early on and getting that engagement early on. And as Francis says, lowering that bar very early on in that patient journey, in that funnel.
I believe that also Rhonda's comment is music to your ears. She says, it's much more than marketing. It is also an opportunity for patient education.
Of course.
And a community-wide content for the greater good. Context, not content. Absolutely.
And that is an iceberg of opportunity. We haven't even scratched the surface, because if you turn it around the other way, you could say, well, we can be a bit sniffy and a bit snooty about it, saying, well, it's not as good as this. But if you've got a choice between a patient or somebody not engaging with dentistry at all, and this may be the only engagement with dentistry they've had for the last 5 years, and we can send them some information that says, it would appear that your gums are in a terrible state and you've got missing teeth and a mouthful of caries, that is better than nothing. That is something that may trigger that patient to make some positive decisions about their oral health. And if that's not there, then they continue to do nothing. But being sent some photographs of their teeth with some information that says, you're in trouble here, mate, that's pretty potent. And we haven't even scratched the surface of how that may help in terms of looking at hard to reach communities, in terms of looking at, various other, whether it's people in prison, armed forces, whatever it might be. There's so many opportunities of that particular aspect of the technology that, are so far beyond the scope of what we're talking about today, but it makes it exciting. So we shouldn't be sniffy or snooty about it, because it creates this it's really egalitarian. It's a leveler, because not everybody wants to go to the dentist. Not everybody can afford to take time off work. People are scared. People are intimidated. It's not a pleasant thing to do. Not everybody likes us.
But as you said, Guy, it works great, but it's not something magical that would work on its own. So
That's
you
right.
put it on your social media, you put it on your website, doesn't mean that will bring you more leads and more case starts.
That's right.
There's a process involved, right?
Yeah.
There's a process involved, and it does require some changes within you, how you do things, the process, and within the staff role, maybe. So can you take me through that? What is your process of taking these leads online, taking them through SmileMate and booking them to your office?
So there's a few things there. The first thing is that I've seen a lot, and I know you within the dental monitoring team, you have a lot of people who sort of stick SmileMate on the website and say, well, we've got SmileMate, but nobody uses it. Nobody does it. And
does it work?
It doesn't work. Well, of course it doesn't work. Because it's a bit like plugging a record player in and saying it's not making any music. Well, you didn't buy any records. So it's about going back to where we started 20 minutes ago. It's about redefining how you want to do things and saying, I want to have a digital practice where I have a patient journey that drives all of my leads through SmileMate, because I know that I want everybody to have the same experience. I want everybody to go on and have a virtual consultation on whatever platform you want afterwards. And I want to standardize that process. And that's actually about saying, forget about everything else. Forget about everything that we used to do, because it's sunk costs. In terms of reinventing my practice for a post-COVID world, for a digital consumer, I need to start from scratch with a blank sheet of paper and say, how do I need this to look? And all of our efforts in terms of our digital presence, our organic, our sponsored marketing, online, all things drive towards getting the largest number of patients to fill in SmileMate, send for SmileMate photographs in as possible. That's the objective, because I know that if they do that, I am more likely to convert them into a virtual consultation, and I'm more likely to have them start treatment. And there's another little piece in that which says, if my patients do that, then they are getting a very clear idea very early on in that process as to the type of organization that we are. And that goes back to the idea of brand, because there are lots of different brands in orthodontics in the same way that there are lots of different restaurant brands. There are lots of different ways you can go and buy a suit, and you can go and buy an off-the-peg suit, or you can go and have a bespoke tailor-made suit. Most people do not have bespoke tailor-made suits, but most orthodontic practice traditionally are designed around that type of service model, which is very high service levels, very high quality, but very time consuming, very expensive, potentially very slow, and potentially inconvenient. So what this does is it takes us, or what we've tried to do rather, is we've tried to redefine what we're doing in orthodontics to make it much more lined up with, the equivalent of the amazing noodle bar, where you can get amazing food, amazing service, but it is fast, it's efficient, it's delivered at a price point, but you know exactly what you're getting. So we need our organization to look and feel like that from the very start, which means that we're not going to spend 45 minutes, pardon the expression, kissing their backsides, talking about their holidays. We want them to know exactly what they're going to get from the front end, which is safe, effective, efficient, buzzy care. So in terms of how we designed SmileMate to Fit, we threw everything away and we said, how do we want this to look? And we said, we are only going to do virtual consultations for patients that have filled in SmileMate forms and sent the photographs. So in other words, that is the only way patients now access our service. And that fundamentally is how we have made SmileMate work for us, because it wasn't, well, we have SmileMate, but actually if you just phone us up, we'll book you in anyway. Or we've got SmileMate, but if we get a letter from a dentist, we'll just book you in because we've got a letter from the dentist. Every single patient goes through that SmileMate platform so that every single patient gets the same experience. Every single patient gets those early doors added value reports. And that whole process is then standardized, which means that then the team are on board with it, because we can say, listen, team, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. We then get their engagement. We can then give that to them to manage. And it becomes, this is our model. Clean, efficient, neat. It's not confusing. And actually what it means is that if we find that patients don't want to do that, we know early that they may not be the patients for us. Because just like some restaurants are not popular with some people, just like some people don't like certain shops, some people are not going to like us. Some people need a bespoke suit, want a bespoke suit, are prepared to go through the pain and anguish of having that done. That's fine. They can go somewhere else. Because I want that large volume of patients that actually want to do things this way. So it's throwing away those things that are no longer fit for purpose. It's creating a new patient journey that orientates around that endpoint for your funnel, and creating all of the steps along the way to allow you to then gift that to the team with their engagement to say, make this happen, make this work. Does that answer the question?
That's a summed up from the audience. Very clear, guy, very clear. So you are using SmileMate in a way as well to triage these patients.
Yes.
And it kind of like a bouncer, right? You're fit, you're not fit for the treatment. And that way you're saving some time of, by eliminating the shoppers, eliminating that waste before they even come to your office.
I think that just on that point, we don't have that many. I mean, it's this concept of bad leads, isn't it? I don't like the concept of bad leads. I think it's a little bit derogatory to certain patients. I think it's about presenting the information at the front end so that they can be very clear about the type of thing that we're offering, so that they can self-select. If they've shown you enough time and enough respect to actually contact you, then it's not a bad lead, it's a bad process. And, we will never be dismissive of patients, and we will work with patients if they haven't got funding in place, or if they haven't got an oral health situation that's compatible with treatment. It's our job to work with them to get them into a position that they can access the care that they need or want. And that stood us in very good stead traditionally. But in terms of what we do, the mechanics of it are that the photographs get sent through SmileMate. I will then, and I've just seen the email drop in there today, I will then get a link to a spreadsheet with all the patients on. I'll then go on there and I will prepare notes on each, just a few notes, simple notes saying, yeah, suitable for Invisalign, 18 months, needs a scale and polish, whatever it might be. That will then go back, and we sometimes do a little video to go with that from the orthodontist, which is very cute, works really well. That gets sent in the report within 24 hours back to the patient with the report and with an invitation to book their online consultation directly. So, photographs on SmileMate, reviewed by orthodontist, feedback from the orthodontist in the form of either written notes or a video to the treatment coordinators, into the email, sent, link through to online calendar to book the virtual consultation with a treatment coordinator, conversion during that consultation, deposit paid, into the clinic to start treatment. And that is the process. So it's photographs, report, virtual consultation, treatment start face-to-face. And those are the steps. And every single step includes very clear direction to the next call to action. So it's very clear, this is what you do, this is what you do, this is what you do, this is what you do. So it's not overwhelming, but it's really clear that the patient can take the control. It's not go away and think about it. It's not go away and, we'll be in touch. It's next step, do this. Next step, do this. Next step, do this. Really clear, really straightforward.
Perfect. So now, Guy, I will invite Dr. Rhonda Coyne to the virtual stage. She'd like to have a chat with you.
Sure.
Let me just see. Oh, we might need Sarah's help. Sarah, are you here? We just need to promote Rhonda to a panelist.
Perfect. She should be coming across.
And I think we're good now. Rhonda, can you hear us? Voila.
Yeah, I can. Let me just unmute my video. All right. So, great listening to you, because I always really enjoy that. Hi. I'm just thinking, and I would like to hear your experience on this. So of all the patients that we've had that have gone through SmileMate, we've done like a provisional plan, and then I've got x-rays, and then they actually wanted to start. How many times have you run it, has it happened that when they actually came to the in-person exam and the physical exam, what you had anticipated actually wasn't the situation and you had to change something?
Yeah.
Because I can see people going, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But actually, so far for me, that has not yet happened. I may have given them two choices because I wasn't sure till I saw them, but I haven't had anything that was like fundamentally, changed what you had anticipated to do.
That's a really good question. And early on, when we were providing notes and videos back to be sent to the patients, we got too detailed. And that's the mistake, because you're not making a diagnosis, an assessment, and a treatment plan from the SmileMate photographs. What you're doing is you're saying, based on what you've sent us, which is your point, based on the information that we've got, I think you would be a great candidate for some treatment, and these are the potential benefits you can enjoy. It would appear that you'll be suitable for treatment X or treatment Y, whether that's fixed or Invisalign or whatever. And your treatment is likely to take in the order of 12 to 24 months or whatever it might be. And by the way, you'll need some retainers. And by the way, you should see your dentist. And by the way, we're super excited about seeing you. And we've got some great flexible payment plans for you. Mm-hmm. And what you're doing, because the patients don't care about the treatment plan at that stage. They just want to know, can I do it? How long is it going to take? And how much is it going to cost?
Yeah.
And you can give them that information, but you cannot give them the treatment plan. So we don't find ourselves having to backpedal because we don't tend to get too deep in at those early stages. That said, I will say, needs to see the dentist, needs some perio potentially, or likely to need extractions or whatever it might be, but very broad. And then when they come into the clinic, we've got buy into the idea that I want to have some treatment. They know how much it's going to cost, and I'll come back to that in a second. And they've got an idea about what sort of treatment they would like, fixed or aligners. And at that point, we can then dig into the treatment plan, because the treatment coordinators are experienced enough to talk around those issues, because we're not offering them a clinical consultation virtually. We're offering them a treatment discussion around the potential options, not around the treatment plan. And in terms of scope of practice, as we have in the UK, we cannot let non-registered clinicians start to treatment plan cases. It makes absolutely no sense. But they can talk about, well, this is what Invisalign's about, this is what this is about, and this is how much treatment it's cost. So that works. But I will listen, I'm not gonna, we've done enough of these now that I've seen cases when they turn up in the clinic and I think, whew, that's a bit more than I thought. If they were a bit postured, for example, and then suddenly they've got a bit more overjet than you expected, or, whatever it might be. But, if you can see the canine, if you've got an ectopic canine, you can spot that on the SmileMates because you can see the C. And then that's really great to tell the patient, we're worried about this. We would really like to see you to take some x-rays to find out what's going on, because that's complicated for you. We need to work that through. And regarding price, we take the rough with the smooth, to be honest. So we have a tiered system of 6 tiers according to case complexity. And I will say this is going to be a tier 4 case. And if it turns out that they were a little bit more complicated, I'll just take that on the chin, because it averages out for the most part. But we're reasonably consistent with that. It's rare. To be honest, I've brought people down a tier more often than I've thought, God damn, I wished I'd charge you more. And that's an amazing.
I love that.
people don't expect you to make it cheaper. By the way, I'm going to charge you less. It's brilliant. So
yeah, that's awesome when you do that for people. They love
and
that.
So in answer to your question, it's about what objectives you set for yourself from that SmartMate assessment. And my advice would be, it should be everything about patient benefit and nothing about clinical treatment planning and assessment, because that has to wait. Because until you've probed the gums, taken the x-rays, you cannot do that.
Yep. And so many of the orthodontists, when they're trying to implement these systems, they get hung up on the mechanics of what's happening like they used to do it.
That's
and
right.
I'm like, I mean, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but you kind of got to start with a clean slate, as you said. Think about how it can work in our new world, and then how you want to make it work. So I really enjoyed like the first bit, and I'll stop talking now. But thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. Yeah, thank you for the engagement.
Yeah.
And I mean that's really such an important point, isn't it? Because we get so, orthodontics is a very funny thing, because whether we like it or not, we're part of a consumer-driven world now. Yeah. And I sometimes feel like we forget that the rules do apply to us. We feel like we can set our own rules about the way people engage with us, and to some degree, because the old-fashioned way of doing it used to have the monopoly. In other words, that was the only way you could access treatment. That was just accepted. But dare I say it, when we look at some of the direct-to-consumer companies, the doors have been blown off. That is there. And unless we can find that magic space between all the wonderful things that we can do as clinicians and the user friendliness, the consumer friendliness of those new models, unless we can find that space and leverage that technology, we're stuffed.
We're going to be irrelevant. Yeah, this is a problem of our own making as orthodontists, that we were arrogant enough to go, no, I'll tell you that you need braces and complete treatment. And the patient just said, I want my front teeth aligned in 6 months for my wedding. And there's a whole pile of people that will go away. No, I'm not going to do that for you. But we need to respond to the ability to do that. That actually you're not a lesser human being because you wanted some limited treatment or with a deadline or something like that. And we need to be able to respond to that.
And it's not the patient's fault, it's not the patient that's in the wrong.
No. I think we're taking a long time for us to realize that as the profession, the current situation we're in is a problem of our making.
Take the white coat off would be my advice.
Yeah. Totally. Mine's black. So much. It's all good. I wear black already at work. So it's all good.
Brilliant.
All right. You better turn me off, Ryan, or I'll keep talking.
I mean, we'd love you to have you over to stay here. It was maybe you said at one time, Guy, during your podcast, I remember, and you were talking about this specific thing, the white coat, the power of the white coat, and how that used to work so well with the baby boomers. But now with the new generation, XYZ, millennials, whatever, they don't give a damn about that.
Well, but that's interesting, isn't it? Because when you look at Gen Zs and beyond, because don't get me wrong, I mean, millennials are now old news. I mean, it's Gen Z's generation alpha. My son's 11, and he's peak generation alpha. These guys are now going to be making decisions, but they don't look towards credibility. Certificates don't count. It's all about peer groups. They will take far more influence from their peer group and the opinions of their peers rather than they would somebody in a white coat, the doctor, the teacher, whatever it might be. You don't get to have that platform. That's gone now. You get much more regard and much more respect by your actions rather than by what you say or what you've done before. And that's a challenge for us. That's a challenge. Oh, Ryan, you should have gone. Ryan is frozen. Is everybody frozen?
I think just Ryan, but we do have some questions coming, Guy. We've just got someone that's just asked, how do you get patients to send the photos, and do they send a series of photos or just a few photos, or do they use inbox? So
your territory managers will help you with this, but there is a standardized series of SmartMate photographs. It integrates with your website. There's a little kind of a web page, which effectively is a photo acquisition thing, works best on mobile, and it just asks them for a series of front, right, left, top, bottom, And then you can do a facial shot if you want to use the vision technology, which I would heartily recommend. It's really cool and really fun. And the SmileMate toolkit includes the resources to tell patients and teach patients how to do that. You can add to that and supplement to that if you want to. And I would again recommend that. So for example, within our organic marketing, we include images of our team or our patients taking their SmileMate photographs. So you can use forks to retract the cheeks. You can use spoons. You can use your fingers. There's lots of things you can do. It's kind of fun, and make it fun. But no, you don't need retractors. You don't need a scan box. You don't need any of that stuff. And some of the photos are a bit rubbish, but SmileMate will reject the really bad ones. But they're nearly all good enough to give the patients enough information to get them to the next stage. Because remember what the objective is. The objective is not a full treatment plan. The objective is, how do we give patients enough information to allow them to make a decision about taking the next step? That's the objective. The objective is not, this is the treatment plan, sign up today. The objective is, this is to help you decide what to do next. So it's very simple. The SmileMate team, wherever you're based, I'm sure will help you with that. It integrates very nicely with your other digital platforms. So you can use it as a target for your pay-per-click advertising. You can use it as a target link, the SmileMate webpage. This is for your organic posts. And we've got it locked onto our homepage on our website so that is the free consultation, click here, whatever, goes straight through to SmileMate. So all roads lead to that page. So I think that answers that question. Vision is great. So those you don't know what vision is, if patients within SmileMate take a facial shot during your virtual consultation, you can now show them really two really cool things. You can show them a simulation of their teeth moving, not always perfect, but really fun and often really good. And secondly, you can show them what they're going to look like with braces on or with Invisalign on, with the attachments and so on and so forth. Because that's the other big question, isn't it? What are my teeth going to look like? And what am I going to look like with braces on or with aligners on? And you can give them an idea. It's not perfect, but it's amazing in terms of helping patients start to visualize what they're going to look like so they feel more comfortable and more relaxed and more confident about taking the next step. It's breaking down barriers. It's taking friction away for them. So vision, very strongly recommended. I saw a question about a deposit. During the virtual consultation, we take a £50, it's not a big deposit, we take a £50 deposit to secure their first face-to-face clinic visit. If they cancel, we give them the money back. If they fail to turn up, we don't. If they go into treatment, that just comes off their treatment cost. And all that is there for is just to make sure people turn up. And we don't get any friction or any pushback from that. They pay online during that virtual consultation, during using some of the functionality on that video consultation platform that we use. Dead simple, dead important, strongly recommended. And we now get virtually no fail to attends from those treatment start visits. And the conversion rate when patients now come into the building is somewhere north of 90–95%. And if I go back to the start of my journey 7 years ago with TIO, when Grant Duncan spoke about having conversion rates at 95% of the patients that he saw, and I, not quite laughed in his face, but not far off, I now see how that works. Because all you're doing is you're saying, as the doctor, as the orthodontist, there's no point in me seeing patients until they're ready to go ahead. It's a waste of their time. It's a waste of my time. It's an amazing thing. And my God, it's so good for the kind of positive vibes that you feel during the day when you're not seeing patients that don't want to be there and don't want to start treatment. It's amazing. So I would again strongly encourage that as a means to generally make your day feel a lot more positive and upbeat because you're only seeing those patients that are ready to go ahead. It's a very nice experience.
Rhonda is asking, what video consultation platform do you use?
We use DoxyMe.
And for payment.
DoxyMe, DOXY.me. And we include the link to the reason we use it is it's got some additional functionality. So it's got, because we have 5 practices. So we have a centralized treatment coordinator team, and we have some various other things that we do for with virtual consultations for our NHS patients. But it has things like virtual waiting rooms and so on and so forth. So it's got some functionality that we really like, but it also allows you to take a online payment. So you can, at the end of that consultation, you just flash up a payment screen on the mobile phone and they put in their credit card details and they pay their deposit. And that just runs through Stripe, which I think we've all probably heard of now, which is just a payment fulfillment company, which is super simple, dead easy to do. But it's that integrated payment functionality is really, really cute. And again, patients are used to it. It just looks cool. If you can do that, you think, geez, these guys are slick. That's really smooth. And again, don't underestimate that. One of the biggest problems that we've got in orthodontics and dentistry is the lack of end-to-end solutions. If you work in almost any other sector, you've got software that will take you from the very start, from lead acquisition till the very end in terms of that kind of post-treatment or post-purchase kind of follow-up, something like Salesforce or whatever it might be. You know, there's software platforms like Zapier that allow you to integrate all these different softwares that you might use. In orthodontics and dentistry, there's nothing. You've got your Invisalign sites, you've got your CRMs and your PRMs, you've got, your review kind of softwares, you've got your practice management softwares. None of them stick together. But for the first time, we've now starting to get something that starts to stick together a little bit better with SmileMate and dental monitoring. And it all starts to make a little bit more sense. And I think we're going to see some real acceleration there. But it's incredibly frustrating that we don't have those solutions. But one of the things that we like about the way the SmileMate emails work is that you can completely customize those, and we include all the links to make those automations and integrations that little bit smoother. There's a little bit of back office work still, but it does function, and it does mean there's not double entry and all of those kinds of things. It does pull across very nicely. But yeah, it's a real bugbear of mine. The person that manages to make all of this stick together is going to be a very popular, very wealthy as well, I would imagine. It's not going to be me.
You got to go easy on the business podcast, right? You're getting frustrated because with dentistry, we're not there yet. But we're getting there. So be conscious of time.
Yeah.
It's 11 in Paris, 10 in the UK.
Wow. I'm gonna make one more point, if I may.
Yes.
Which is just about teams and training. And it's about change management. Because if we go back to the idea of starting with a blank sheet of paper, one of the really challenging things is always not the idea or the vision. It's about getting the team on board with that. And this is a really big change. To get this to work, to get this to stick, you not only need to have the idea about how it's going to work and look, but then you need to give that to the team and get them to work with that. And don't underestimate how difficult that's going to be. And don't underestimate how much effort that's going to take. And the pieces of advice I would give you is give it to the team. Don't run it yourself. If you're the head of your organization, if you're the practice owner, whatever it might be, create a task and finish group or a little kind of a linchpin within your organization who can take this project, make it their own, create that engagement, create that urgency, create that buy-in, and make the project stick. Because it is a big change for people that have been doing the same thing the same way for 10, 20, 30 years. And most importantly, they need to recognize where the value is for them. Because unless they recognize that there is a benefit for them in terms of the work that they do, the benefit that they will enjoy, either in terms of they're going to have an easier life, they're going to be working for an organization that is better, faster, slicker, cooler, that is at less risk of losing their job and going bust, that is going to have happier patients, whatever it might be, creating that buy-in, creating that engagement, and then giving that to the team to embed and implement is so powerful. Otherwise, it's just yet another thing where the head of the practice is standing in the pulpit and preaching, do this, do that, do the other. This is what we're doing this week. Oh, and by the way, it'll be something else next week. Because it takes time and it takes effort and it takes buy-in.
And if you don't create that, and if you don't create that expectation that it's not going to be perfect to start with, but we're going to commit to this and we're going to work on it and we're going to keep going, keep trying, we're going to learn from our mistakes, it will be a struggle. Just as it was when you converted to Invisalign, just when it was you started doing dental monitoring. This is no different. But they can make it work for you. They can make it work. They're the secret.
Beautifully said, again. We have someone asking, do you use SmileMate for observation appointments, or do you only use DM for that?
No, we use DM. So SmileMate we use up until the point of treatment starts, and then obviously they go into whatever your workflow looks like from there, which of course is dental monitoring for Invisalign and so on and so forth. The nice thing is that because they've already come to us through SmileMate, dental monitoring is like, well, this just makes sense. This is a very obvious fit for what I've already experienced. So it all just glues together really nicely in terms of that patient experience.
Perfect.
Great.
Do we have any more questions from the audience? Oh, here we go. Any tips for GP dentists? Should we offer an exam, clean X-ray, OPG package?
So for me, you've got even more opportunities because you can talk about so many different things. I mean, you've got the same problems in the sense you can't treatment plan, but what you do have is the opportunity to create urgency in your patients and to talk about the potential benefits. So you could have exactly the same patient journey, invite them into the clinic, at which point you then have the x-rays, the clean, you can say, come in for your first visit when you're going to get your cleaning, your polish, you're going to get your full consultation and your x-ray, because you're going to be able to tell enough to say, this patient needs a clean, a polish and an x-ray and a full clinical examination, and then they're going to leave with a treatment plan. So what you're doing is you're lining them up for that, those basics, those rudimentary aspects of let's get you in shape to start the next phase. And I think that could work really, really well for non-orthodontic practice. And you've got so many different things you can talk about, in terms of cosmetics and health and function, all of those kinds of different things. It's a gift. It's a gift. And the reports, the SmileMate reports, really lend themselves to that, because there's so many more bits of information you can talk about. Because in orthodontic practice, we can't change most of that stuff. We say the benefits are this, this, and this, but we can only help you with this one. So actually, we don't have quite as many benefits to talk about, whereas you've got lots.
Perfect.
There we are. Well, listen, I'm super sorry. I was slightly the time zone thing beat me. After a year of lockdown, it's the first time I've had a time zone error. But we made it in the end. Well,
no problem at all, guy. Probably our fault. We should have been more keen on that, but it happens. And good thing you were able to do your webinar. So
I need to go and have a shower now. But listen, if anybody wants to continue to engage, we're doing a Clubhouse thing next week, aren't we? And you can look me up on LinkedIn, and please visit our website. You can follow us on Instagram. There's loads of stuff on Instagram. But there's no magic bullet. There's no magic wand, silver bullet. You've got to, everything else has got to be in place. The team, the marketing, but SmileMate is the cherry on the cake in terms of making that all work and bringing everybody into one place. And that for me is the magic of it. And if you haven't given it the time and due attention, do. And my final closing thought is, if you're going to do it, get all in, commit. Because if you just do a little bit, it won't work. It won't stick, because people will always go for the old way if there's a choice. So stop the old way completely. Shut that door. Bury it in concrete.
Very well said, Guy. So thank you so much again. As Guy said, visit his Instagram, his podcast, his website. As Mark also mentioned, it's very impressive the way you market SmileMate to your patients. So he invites everyone to go and see it. He also adds to that you have an impressive record collection, which I already told you that once before.
Yeah. That's lockdown for you. I only had 2 a year ago, and now there's about.
Wow.
No, it's not true.
That's
Not quite. LinkedIn. Yeah, my email is. Well, I'll get to Ryan. You can share it. You can share the URL on the LinkedIn afterwards there. But,
Perfect. So I'll say sorry. We'll send a follow-up email with all your details. I also want to add one more thing. We're having a clubhouse this Thursday, so tomorrow, with Dr. Francis Scriven. We're going to be talking more specifically about, dental monitoring and how it works so well with the orthodontic treatment. So please don't hesitate to join us on Clubhouse. The name of the club is AI in Orthodontics. I'll write it down. We'll send it in a follow-up email, and we're looking forward to have more of these discussions.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a great day. And or great night. I have no idea what time it is in the UK, let alone in Australia. Stay well. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.